So one question I keep getting asked by a lot of people is the Steam Deck the Nintendo Switch killer? And that's a question that I feel like anytime Nintendo has a handheld, there's always this topic that comes up. I mean, think about it. When we had the Nintendo Game Boy, the original from 1989, the Game Gear and the PC Engine Express was supposed to be the Game Boy killer. Same thing with the DS, the PSP was supposed to be the DS killer. And then we had the 3DS and the Vita was supposed to be the 3DS killer. And every time, literally, every time Nintendo has a portable handheld or a device that has that capability, the question is asked. And we're going to talk about that more in this video because I think this is something that really could use a good discussion and, some clarity. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
This wasn't written with your comfort in mind. Nah. Made my decision, wasn't tough to decide. Nah. Me and my boys, we get it done every time. Gotta earn it, you can't just jump in the line. You'll get rushed to the side. I top my division, I've been building since I started. In the parking lot, I parked it. I came in while picking targets. My career cannot be tarnished. I'm a champion regardless. Celebrate, but this a different kind of lucha party. We are not alike.
Before we dive into the topic of this video, make sure you sub to the channel and the notification bell. That way you can stay up to date on all the content that I put out. But diving into this topic, this is one where I like I said, I constantly get asked this, and I don't really want to beat around the bush because this could be a long video, and for those who don't want to waste time to sit through it, I'm just going to go ahead and say no. The Steam Deck is not a Nintendo Switch killer because they hit two entirely different demographics and their functioning usages are very, very, very different. So if that's the answer you're looking for, from me, yeah, I'm saying it. It's not a Switch killer. They're not even directly competing. So diving further into that, yes, if you were to compare form factor and usability in many ways, they're both full console experiences, or one's a full console, one's a, basically a portable PC. And they both give you console quality experiences. Now, power and performance wise, the Steam Deck is much more powerful than the Nintendo Switch, and it's able to run a lot of games at 60 frames per second, and it can output higher than 720p because, with recent updates, you can change the output, for the display and whatnot. But when it comes to games, they're going to be very, very different. Now, if we're going off of the stock experience of the Steam Deck and you haven't added like Emu Deck or any of the emulation or anything like that, then their libraries will have some crossover. You'll get Doom on both, Doom and Doom Eternal. You also get the BioShock series. And, there's a lot of titles. Octopath Traveler is on both Steam as well as on the Switch. But where they differ is the fact that the Switch has a whole different category, which is first party exclusives, which are from Nintendo themselves, which are never going to go to another platform. Yes, you could emulate the Switch on the Steam Deck, and I've done that. I've got a couple Switch games on it, which I do personally own as well. But I'm not going to get any of the Zelda titles, the Metroid titles, or any of the other major first party exclusives that Nintendo has. Any of the Marios or anything like that. Those are going to be particular titles that are exclusive to the platform of the Switch, and they run a certain way because they're optimized for the Nintendo Switch. Like I said, you can emulate them on the Steam Deck to varying levels of success. I mean, certain titles like Metroid Dread run really fine on the Steam Deck, whereas, Breath of the Wild, you probably should use the Wii U version instead of the Switch version. You can run from 45, frames per second all the way up to 60. But you're not going to get that experience on the Steam Deck. But what you will get that you won't get on the Switch is a lot of PC exclusive titles that you're just not going to get on consoles. And that's some of the things that I've really, really enjoyed is playing a lot of the games that I have on my Steam catalog. I've got hundreds of games. And one of the things is, for me before, and I will admit this, I have been a console gamer for decades, right? PC gaming, I kind of got into that late within the last decade and a half. And even then, as much as I love PC gaming, trying to find that time where I can just sit at my desk and play my games on PC is incredibly trying. And especially now with kids, I got a toddler running around, I got teenagers. It's really hard for me to really devote that time to sit and just play a game at PC. And this also applies to me with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S. So the fact that I can just sit here and play my games on Steam Deck, not all of them work, but the ones that I do want to play, they do work, or I can just, mess around with the Protons and be able to get them to work. Being able to have access to those titles and be able to play when and how I want, and also the third-party titles that are also on the Switch, they just run better on the Steam Deck. So that's going to be my preferred platform to play it on. And then the versatility of it. Like I said, I was speaking purely from a stock Steam OS experience, like no modifications, but let's go ahead and dive into that. There's some other things that you can't do with the Switch. Now, think about it. If you want to play legacy titles on your Nintendo Switch, outside of compilations, you got Nintendo Switch Online, which gives you access to the, NES Classics as well as the SNES Classics collections that they start to drip feed. A lot of mediocre titles. They had the heavy hitters at the beginning, but a lot of titles they've been adding to that have been fairly mediocre, right? And then if you want to play Nintendo 64 games, that's going to be something you have to shell out extra money to get the expansion pass to be able to play that. So even then, the selection of N64 titles outside of first-party Nintendo titles, there's not a lot of N64 games that are really that great. Now, if they put Ogre Battle 64 on Nintendo Switch Online, that's going to be a heavy hitter. But beyond that, outside of first-party Nintendo games, and a couple licensed ones, there's not a lot of great Nintendo 64 games that really warrant the price of Nintendo Switch Online. So like I said, you have a lot of heavy hitters for the NES and SNES, and then you have a lot of mediocre titles that they keep adding in. And you look at the Nintendo platform, right? You had the Wii and you had the Wii U, which they both had access to, the Wii Shop and the eShop. And you had so many titles to choose from, such a smorgasbord that you don't have on the Switch. You have really a pathetic offering on the Switch. And so you're really struggling to really have that option to play a lot of legacy titles unless you were to jailbreak your Switch. Now, when it comes to Steam Deck, diving into the topic of utilizing EmuDeck and all the other, emulation and stuff that you can do, the customization, you literally have every console that's come out all the way up until kind of the Switch, but you can play, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, PC Engine, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, Genesis 32X, Sega CD, Master System, NES, Super NES, 64, GameCube, the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch. You can't really do PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but then a lot of the titles that you would play on those, you can also get the Steam version, which typically runs better than it did on those platforms. So your capability of gaming on this platform is absolutely insane, like the customization. But the barrier of entry for that customization really lies in how comfortable are you with tinkering, with following tutorials, and the like. I have a lot of people that, when I make tutorials, they'll go and say like, oh, you have the cases where it was successful for them, and then you have those who, I did this, it didn't work. I did this, it didn't work. I need you to do this. And it's like, I'm not fucking Geek Squad. I'm not about to walk you through, especially if I give you like not only the video, but then there's also a link that shows you how to do the step by step. And I think that's something when it comes to casuals or people who don't want to like follow tutorials or guides or have difficulty with that, the capabilities of the Steam Deck are going to be very, very limited. And that's going to be something that, this is a tinkerer's device. And for a lot of people, they're not tinkerers. A lot of people want to just get something, open it up, connect to the internet, update it, and then start playing their games, and you can get that experience on the Steam Deck with the Steam library of games that you have or ones you want to pick up, or you go to the library and go to the tab that says games great on deck, then you can have access to that there. But if you want to unlock more potential of the Steam Deck, you're going to want to tinker, install emulators, get your ROMs, your ISOs and all that, and dive into it. And, for me, this has been the device that is my backlog slayer. Like, I'm playing so many games that, in a lot of games, I just don't have time to set up the legacy consoles. Like, I've got a massive game collection, and a lot of the games I have emulated are ones that I own, and I'm like, man, I'm finally able to get through these Game Boy Advance games, these GameCube games, these Wii games, these PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 3 games. And then it's also the access that you have to games like, that were on PSN or were on the Wii Shop or the eShop that you can't access anymore, that have been delisted. You can still play them. If you are able to locate the files, which Google is your best friend, then you can emulate these games and play them again. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes, the PlayStation Network or the Xbox Live version, that has ultra-wide support and is one of the best versions to play. You may not be able to play it online, but having that portably, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 portably, come on now. There's so many opportunities for like just gaming goodness with the Steam Deck that, for me personally, I find myself gravitating more towards the Steam Deck for a lot of my, well, not a lot, a majority of my gaming preferences. Now, there are some caveats with that, because there's times when I want to just play games on my Switch, and a lot of games I get like for review. I got a ton of games for review for Switch. So, digital codes, I just play them, I play my games on the Switch, physically and digitally. Or there are times when like I've got the analog pocket and I want to play, I've got a collection of Game Boy Advance games and Game Boy Color games and Game Boy games that I want to play, and I'll play it on there because I like the feeling of authenticity of playing on the platform. Now, I know some people are just purely about, the emulation, and that's all they want to do. They don't want to deal with physical, because, collecting right now, with the inflation after, well, not after, we're still in the pandemic, but because of the pandemic and everything, games are just astronomically become expensive. I'm lucky I already have a large collection, and I still do occasionally add more and more games to it. But I can just play them here on the Steam Deck, or I can go and play them on my actual physical hardware. So the convenience of the Steam Deck and its capability for gaming, and then also doubling as a full-blown Linux computer as well, there's a lot of versatility in it. I think a lot of people will be blown away with what they can do with the Steam Deck. And I will admit, the Steam Deck is not going to be for everyone. And that's just something I need to say off the bat. A lot of people, especially if you're just coming from the Switch or PlayStation, 4 or 5 or Xbox One or Series X and S, it may not be for you. It may not be the platform you want to dive into. Just saying. If you don't want to tinker, you don't want to deal with like, having to utilize the various protons or going through the compatibility or any of that. It may not be for you. But if you're like me, you like to tinker, or if you're just a gamer in general and you just like having choice, I don't see anything wrong with having the Steam Deck. It's something that I do love playing. Granted, battery life could be a lot better, and I think it will be in the next revision. But there's also a lot of, if you go into the settings and tinker, you can do more with like expanding your battery life. Some games you can get an hour, some games 30 minutes, some games you can get 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. It really depends. And also you can tinker with that. Being able to play Cyberpunk 2077 and Red Dead Redemption 2, as well as like Final Fantasy VII Remake and all these other amazing, titles, current gen titles, last generation titles, that you won't get that experience on the Switch. Or if you do get it on the Switch, it's going to be either frame rate issues, graphical downgrading to a massive degree. It may not even run at 720. It may run at 540p. And granted, they may not, graphics may not matter to you. So there's that. Or it may be a cloud version. So you're going to have to deal with that. But, if that doesn't mean anything to you, if you just love the Switch and you like the conversation of the Switch, hey, more power to you. But they're very different devices targeting two very different demographics. Personally, I want to say if we're going to get a Switch Pro or a successor to the Switch, I hope Nintendo looks at the Steam Deck and they find a lot of inspiration as to what they can do hardware-wise, to make a more powerful, capable device to keep up with the current generation. Because right now, I feel like we're at the tail end of the Switch era. It's run its course in many ways. The gap between what's out on other consoles and when it comes to the Switch, and then many titles are subpar that get ported over. Or you pay that Switch tax and it's just like more expensive to play it on the Switch. People are going to get tired of that. A lot of people have been tired of that for years, but it's much more noticeable now. But if you had to ask me, is the Steam Deck the Switch killer? No, it's not. It's an amazing device. It gives you more capability of gaming. You get a full-blown PC experience with Linux, which isn't that hard to learn. It just takes some time to understand how certain things operate on it. And, the Switch is great for what it is. It's really good for what it is. I'm glad I've got both. I've got choice. But yeah, that's the conversation. I just want to talk about that. Having full-blown PC games, AAA games, next generation, current generation, previous generations, having the capability of accessing decades, over 3 decades worth, almost 4 decades worth of gaming consoles on one device is mind-blowing. There's nothing else on the market like it. I mean, outside of like, the Ioneo and the Odin Pro and all those stuff like that. The AOK, what is it? AOKs or whatever it's called. There's those devices. But the device that's shown itself to be something that people are really loving has been the Steam Deck. And more power to the Switch. I love it as well. There's a lot of games for it. I love a lot of exclusives. And I'm not going to get rid of my Switch. I'm still going to play games on it. I've got a Switch OLED. I've also got a Switch Lite. You might be wondering, what's the point of having both? Switch OLED, primarily I use it docked. Occasionally I'll pull it out and play games on it. But because I've got a toddler running around, that Switch Lite, just pocket that put it in my pocket. And then I play it when I get to the chance to play, which isn't often because I have a toddler. But beyond that, both devices are great. I love what they both bring to the table. And I think as gamers, we win by having choices like this. So yeah, that's the video. What do you guys think? Why don't you let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you more into the Switch, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Series X, and Series S? Are you more into PC gaming and the Steam Deck? Or are you like me and you have all of it and you just love having choice? And this just really comes down to, do you have enough time to play and what you're going to pick up and start playing? Whatever your thoughts are, let's go ahead and get the conversation going in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video, sub to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to support the content that we put out, then make sure you check us out on patreon.com/MikelCasanova, as well as on channel memberships here on YouTube. And we also got merch on Teespring and TeePublic. all that being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one. Stay safe, be blessed, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Mahalo for your time. If you found this episode to be incredibly enjoyable, informative, or if there's anything you gain from it, or any insight, or anything that's good that you really, really enjoyed, make sure whatever platform you're listening to it on, or if you're watching it, leave a comment if that's available on the platform, like it, share it around with someone you think would enjoy it, and give us some feedback, because your feedback is exactly what we need to keep this show going. And if you're wondering what are some ways that you could support the show, we got various ways. We've got Patreon, we have channel memberships over on YouTube, as well as Subscribestar, Coffee, and so much more. Links for everything will be in the description. Check that out. And with all that being said, I hope you have an aloha rest of your day.
Let them know that I'm next level. I'm a whole new kind of guy. Yeah. Yes, at the top spot in case you forgot. We the ones that got the block hot, bullet got the shot.